What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Entre Mike back with another video. And in today's topic, we're going to be going over truck insurance. Really, everything you need to know if you're a new entrant or existing business and you just want to kind of learn more about truck insurance. This is the video you want to watch. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe button if you really enjoy the content. Also, I got links for everything you'll need in this video. If you want to contact me, reach me, just check the description. All right, guys. So there's a few things you want to know about truck insurance and when what to look out for as far as getting a commercial auto quote. And the first thing I think is almost the most important tip that you want to do before getting a quote is know more about your MVR or motor vehicle record. So the notes I just got here is to be honest, it wouldn't hurt to get your MVR pulled before getting a commercial auto quote. Any accidents within the last 3 to 5 years will affect the premium. Usually, anything after 3 years isn't as major. And I've also tended to see if it's not a speeding ticket, if it's a minor violation, it won't hurt as much. But accidents, depending on if you were at fault or not, can be pretty crucial as far as from a premiums perspective. There are going to be situations where you weren't at fault for an accident and it's still reported. As long as you can prove that you were not at fault, you should be fine. If you're trying to get a commercial auto quote within 30 days of getting one, you should go ahead and get your MVR pulled just so it's no surprises. All right, so the next one is credit. Credit can usually help with down payment options. If there are multiple business owners, general rule of thumb is just, if it's a few of you, two or three of you, the person with the best credit should be the policy holder. But it's not really too important for the overall price. It's not, I mean, usually they're going to go a little bit harder off of the next factors that we'll get into. But if you got bad credit, don't be ashamed of it. Don't be afraid, because it's not the biggest factor when getting an insurance quote. It just is a very small thing that they look at. And usually, what I see when I tend to think about credit is maybe with certain carriers, it can help you get a lower down payment. Not many though. Now this one does matter. The zip code and state. Zip code and state is going to play one of the biggest roles in your commercial auto quote. But I do want to be upfront and say don't lie about your address. It's not going to really turn out well if you're lying about where you live or where the business resides. Common practices are just be honest. Also, insurance likes for you to keep everything matching. So I got right here, just keep things simple. Try to match your business address with your home address and garaging address. Usually they'll be checking your safer profile to kind of see if those things are matching up. They don't necessarily have to match. It just would help from an insurance perspective for everything to match. It's a little less confusing. They'd also probably prefer you to have drivers that's in the same state. Let's say you got one truck in Georgia and one truck in New York. Of course, that truck in New York is going to be a higher risk. So just having out of state drivers can kind of confuse, it can be confusing for underwriters. And generally speaking, it'll be a higher premium if you decide to go with having drivers out of state. Also, if you decide to do drivers out of state, there are a lot of insurance providers that will not work with you if you got out of state drivers. So just know you're limiting your options when you do that. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Either way, we do got carriers that do work pretty well with people with out of state drivers. Just keep that in mind. Insurance companies do not like virtual addresses. So it's funny because I made a video almost 4 years ago now, stating that was one of the biggest mistakes I made when starting the business. When I was doing box trucking, was that I decided to do a virtual address out of Atlanta or something like that, and it started causing problems as far on the insurance side, and we didn't end up going active when we were supposed to. So basically, if they look up that garaging address and they know a commercial vehicle can't be parked there, they won't insure it. So just keep that in mind when you're, starting your business. And then age. The older, the better, unless you're too old. So it is what it is. If you're young, it's not much you can really do about it. Only thing that will help is time. Um, and FYI, if you're younger than 23, quotes aren't the most competitive. You should still get quoted. You should still try. And but it's something about that age of like 22, 23 is kind of where it's a cutoff. So if you're younger than 23, you're kind of limiting who you can go with as far as doing insurance. And I've had plenty of people, that's 21, 22 years old where they get their quotes back. It's a little too high, or it may not be in a range, and they figure out, you know what, I might just be a company driver for a few years, and then jump back and do owner operator. Now quotes between 35 to 65 are usually the best risk for insurers. Just know once you get into that 65, and older range, that's where you start, you know, creeping back up on the premium side because you start to become a higher risk than somebody, who's in that 35 to 65. All right. These are some other little small things that I want you to keep in mind. When getting an insurance quote and realizing why the price of your premium may not be what you expected. Just know that the higher your radius of operation is, the more you will pay. For new ventures, 500 miles and unlimited miles will be your only options for most insurance carriers. Do not compare yourself to others when it comes to rate. It's not as simple as, Billy lives across the street from me. Billy is about around my same age, and we haul around the same thing. Like, it could be a multitude of different things between you and Billy. So it's just best to keep an open mind when it comes to insurance. You may not get the same rate that somebody got last year just because they live down the road from you. Insurance varies. It can be based on cargo claims, it can be based on comprehensive and collision claims. And honestly, there's not much you can do about it, but shop around. Just know the more that your truck costs, the more expensive the policy will be. Collision and comprehensive side, or physical damage. That's what we call it. And I want to give a small renting versus buying example. We run into a lot of guys who rent 26-foot box trucks, and they'll rent with, let's say, Rider, Budget, or Enterprise. And sometimes those rental companies will require you to insure the truck at a higher physical damage than what the truck may be worth. And you have to state it at that value. So let's say you're renting with Rider. I think most commonly their physical damage is 100,000, versus if you were to go finance a truck for, let's say, 30,000, you would only have to cover that truck for 30,000. Same truck, different values. Usually Ryder is probably going to have newer trucks than financing an older, box truck, but just keep that in mind when getting an insurance quote. If you know somebody who's financing the truck or bought their truck cash, the value of their truck is going to be lower than what somebody, would be renting it for. Do not cut corners if you have a loan on the vehicle. Like I said, with a lot of this stuff with insurance, it's just best to be upfront and honest about your situation. Let your agent kind of guide you and mentor you through what you should do as far as getting the right rate. If you lie and you try to, cut corners, just to try to get your foot in the door, I promise you it's probably not going to end how you want it to. So just be upfront and honest about your situation, and let your agent, kind of mentor you through what you should do next. Stated values for physical damage must be at least the value of the loan. Be honest about how many trucks and drivers you're going to start with, because there are some insurance carriers, not many, who are pretty lenient about, let's say you have a policy and you want to start with 3 trucks, but you only get insurance for 1 truck and you want to add the rest later. That can work sometimes for some carriers, but it doesn't work for all of them. So just know if you're going to start a policy, be honest about how many trucks and how many drivers you're going to have, because depending on the carrier, they may not be as lenient as far as insuring that risk. Now this is a more positive slide. Discounts. There are a few things you can do to have discounts on certain policies for certain carriers. Having a personal auto coverage for at least 1 year on, like, a personal vehicle. Having an ELD provider. Our company referral partner is Motive. If you guys want to know more about that, click the link in the description. It'll take you straight there. Auto pay discount. This is if you set your uh, payment schedule for auto pay. So instead of just paying every single time the bill is due, it automatically drafts from your account. On certain carriers, this can be a pretty decent discount, up to like 3 to 5%. Then you got the pay in full discount. This is probably the best discount out there as far as insurance. It's just, of course, you got to pay the full policy premium up front. And these discounts are usually 15-20%. Agency versus direct. Um, get you an agent who knows trucking or knows truck insurance. If you don't go with an agency that doesn't know about trucking insurance, you can lose out on thousands of dollars. So every single day when you get on the load board, especially for my guys hauling general freight, you're gonna have to get on the load board and book loads with freight brokers. Those freight brokers, most of the time, are gonna require you to have them listed as an additional insured or certificate holder 9 times out of 10. And if you can't get a response back from your support team quick from a team that specializes in trucking, it's gonna be difficult to get those certificate requests or additional insured requests, or they may need to see the vehicles listed. They may need to see the VIN number of the vehicles listed. They may need to see the drivers listed. If you can't get those as soon as possible, you can be missing out on loads just for that reason because they're going to go with the carrier who's prepared versus the carrier who's not. It's just as simple as that. You want to get an agency just because they're faster, period. When you go with an agency, you just have more options. That's it. We shop you with different carrier providers. All right, now we're gonna shortly talk about coverages. It's not much to know here if you haul in general freight. I know most of the guys who follow the content came from either box trucking or hot shotting, but even if you're, hauling uh, semi general freight or cargo vans, these are the most common coverages. So for what the FMCSA requires, it's usually just going to be 750,000 auto liability in most states. Some are 1 million. For brokers, they're going to require that you have 1 million auto liability and 100K cargo. The auto liability covers. I'll just show a brief screenshot of what that covers. Basically, if you were to get in an accident, it would cover the other person's stuff, so it would cover their property, medical payments, and things of that nature. 100K cargo. Cargo usually covers the freight that you're hauling. Let's say you got a hot shot load or flatbed load. You tarp the load, and then the load got wet. That could be a cargo claim. And depending on which carrier you go with, you want to kind of check the exclusions to see if that type of stuff is covered. They also need these other two, physical damage or general liability. But as far as physical damage, just think about your asset, your truck. So if you were to go and strike a light pole, it would cover the damages of your truck. The cargo physical damage are going to come with a deductible. So let's say you had a physical damage claim on your truck and you total the truck. If your stated value was 20,000, you would still have to pay the deductible of 1,000 or 2,500 until they cover the rest. And general liability, this usually covers a broad amount of coverage for your business, and it's not typically expensive. I know Amazon Relay is a very popular company that requires you to have general liability. 1 million, 2 million aggregate. And for general liability, just kind of one example of something I know it does cover is, let's say you're unloading your box truck. Somebody, a worker from the warehouse jumps up on your box truck to help you unload the truck, and then they slip and fall off the lift. They slip and fall off the lift gate and hurt themselves. That's something where you weren't really moving in the vehicle. You didn't get into an accident, but somebody got hurt, working and helping you with your operations. But just keep in mind, it's not a very expensive coverage. If you want to get a quote with me and my agency, click the link in the description. There's a quote form that you can fill out. Yeah, so I'll put the phone number over there. That's my direct line. If I don't answer, just shoot me a text. Shoot me a text and say truck insurance quote or more information on truck insurance. And we'll see you next time. Peace.